Welcome to episode 100 of Process Pioneers. My name is Daniel Rayner. I am the host of Process Pioneers. What a journey it has been over the last 12 months or so.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process.
It has been such a exciting, educational, informative series that I've had the privilege of being part of, being able to sit down with various business process management practitioners and specialists from all walks of life, or all various types of organizations in various positions as well. We've had the privilege of sitting down with people from consulting firms that are working with many different organizations on the topic of business process management. I've also been able to sit down with individuals that work internally at these organizations, whether it's on a small project or a larger piece of work, in how they are tackling the topic of BPM, business process management. And everyone in between. Including people from the academic realm. We've also sat down with a number of different vendors as well, software vendors in the space, consultants, C-level executives that tackle BPM more from that strategic high-level overview. How is BPM going to help the organization achieve its strategic objectives? And then also those that are down in the trenches, if you wanted to say that are doing the more nitty-gritty sort of technical work, working on creating process maps and setting up a process repository and things like that. So it's been quite the journey. And for episode 100, I wanted to make things, do things a little bit differently. I actually don't have a guest on the show today. So that's a first for Process Pioneers. But what I thought I'd do, and it has been a request I have received over the last 6 months or so, that I should do an episode where I share my thoughts and my biggest takeaways from the series, to try and summarize the last 100 episodes, which is quite a challenge because I also don't want this episode to run on for hours and hours. So we'll try and keep it relatively short. But we're just going to dive into what my biggest takeaways personally are. If you've been following the series, I'm sure you've got your own sort of list of takeaways or thoughts or ideas around business process management after listening to these different practitioners. And I've had a lot of great feedback from different people about how much they've been able to glean from the series as well. But let's dive into it, and hopefully there's some value in this podcast episode for you. But where I wanted to begin was I wanted to go all the way back to the beginning of the inception of this podcast series and how the idea came about. And so firstly, I wanted to tell you this story. It's a story that dates back to July of 2019, so a little over 2 years ago now, where I was presented with a carrot. And that carrot was to fly to Germany, of all places, and to sit down with the team from GBTech. GBTech being a software solution provider for business process management. And so I got to sit down with this amazing team in their new, very modern looking head office there in Bochum in Germany. And they actually presented me with an offer to join the team and help them establish GBTech Asia Pacific, and to expand into this market. And being a boy from Brisbane, Australia, I came back to where I grew up, where I'm from, to start the GBTech APAC expansion, starting off with Australia and New Zealand. And in starting a subsidiary of a company, whatever it might be, in a new region, The probably one of the best things you can do, and what I did for the last 2 years is start having conversations. You've got to have conversations with different people in the industry. You've got to understand the needs, the requirements, the appetite for a solution, for a service provider, whatever it is you're offering. And so that's where I began. I started having conversations with different business process professionals, specialists, experts in this realm, because to be honest, it was a new realm for me 2 years ago. It was an area that I was venturing into that I can't say I had too much experience in prior. And so I was having conversations, and many conversations. And I guess the question in the back of my mind when having these questions is trying to understand, why would an organization want to manage their business processes? What's the real driver here? Because if you're a smart organization, if you're a wise organization, you're not just going to be throwing your money around, which, some of you will probably be chuckling right now, because you may even be at an organization where it does feel like they've got a lot of cash to throw around. But why would any organization want our product? Where is the real tangible commercial value in an organization to adopt a business process management solution like we have? And I want to just put in a bit of a disclaimer here in this episode. This isn't going to be me pitching you anything. I'm not going to act like a sneaky car salesman to try and pitch you onto our product or anything. This is just merely part of the journey, part of the story leading to our Process Pioneers. So it was in having all of these different conversations, I noticed that there were three main groups of people. Now, that's obviously a generalization, but three groups of people that I was talking to. The first one being that the people that would say, oh, we don't really manage or improve our business processes. We don't really have a hold on that. We don't, that's not something we focus on or give any time, effort, and energy to. Whether they agreed with the organization's direction or decision on that, that's a different story. But that was that first group, that we don't manage, we don't improve, we don't have visibility. For some of them, they're like, it's an absolute mess, and it's something that we need to work on and give more focus and attention to. Now, the next group, the second group was, oh yeah, we tried to manage our business processes, but we don't do that anymore. And I heard this from a number of different people from a range of different organizations where, maybe they had embarked on a 12-month, 18-month, 2-year exercise of mapping their business processes, but it all fell apart. And I'm sure some of you are already thinking and already are well aware of the reasons why it fell apart, but that'll come a little bit later on. So first group, we don't manage our business processes. Second group, we tried it, but we don't do that anymore for whatever reason, X, Y, Z. And the third group was we effectively manage and improve our business processes. We've got a significant amount of adoption and enterprise-wide. It may not necessarily be at the ultimate sort of maturity level, or they may still have a way to go, but these organizations are, yes, we value it, we give it attention, we are heading in the right direction, and we are happy with where we're at. So those were the three groups of people, and it was particularly this third group of people, when I was listening to them, I thought it was absolute gold what they were sharing with me. I was certainly learning a lot as someone that was new into this realm, into this industry. And as I was talking with this third group of people, I automatically or naturally thought of the first two groups of people, or categories of people or organizations, where I was thinking, these people really could learn something from this third group of people that, they value it, they give it attention, and they're really kicking goals with it. And so that's where that's where the idea came from, where I was kind of mulling over it, thinking like, what do I need to do to help groups 1 and 2? How do I link them up with these people from group 3? Is it something that I just sort of connect them over LinkedIn and let them have the conversations? Will they even see any sort of desire? Will they even have an interest in it, in connecting, particularly maybe group 2 where they've tried it before, but they're like, nah, it doesn't work. We don't, try and convince us that it works, but we haven't seen it work. So that's where I came up with the idea, and it kind of ties into my background, which I studied film and TV. That was what I did straight out of high school. And that's where I thought, well, I've got those skills. What if I sit down with these people, this third group, and document all of this information that they're sharing with me, because groups 1 and 2 can certainly learn and glean a lot. So that's where I thought, I want to be able to record it. I want to record the audio, potentially record the video, essentially giving this group 3, these people from group 3, a platform to be able to share their knowledge, their expertise, their challenges faced, the obstacles they've overcome, give them a platform to be able to share to the wider BPM community and the BA community, those that have an interest in business processes, and to help them in their journey of business process management, and particularly in their organization. And that's where Process Pioneers came from, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process. And if you've been following the series, that is the line I start off each episode with, because it's it sums up exactly what we're going to dive into. Over the last 12 or be close to probably maybe 16, 17 months now that we've been releasing episodes. We released them on YouTube, which we've built a little bit of a following there. So you can follow along in video format. You've got the subtitles there. And I've had the privilege of sitting down with different experts such as Ant Raj, who his episode we give a special heading or a unique heading for each episode that tries to sum up, I guess, the key point, the main takeaway. For Ant's episode, Ant Raj, he was really talking about making process sexy again, and getting that buy-in and adoption from all stakeholders within the organization. I've sat down with Dan O'Neill, whom a few of you may be aware of, or many of you may be aware of, but he talks about how process is everything, and he gives us some fantastic examples of how process is in and through everything that we do as an organization to deliver value. And if you don't have a handle, or if you're not managing those, then how can you possibly expect to improve, or for anything to improve. That's the right word. Let's leave it at that. Next one, Marcelo Larosa, whom again some of you would be familiar with, process mining paradigm shift. And if you know Marcelo, he has co-founded Aprimore, which is a process mining solution out of the University of Melbourne down there. I'm up in Queensland, hence the down there. And that episode, we dive into process mining and the real sort of tangible commercial value that process mining as a technology can bring an organization, and how it really closes the loop or the gap between I guess documenting your business processes and what your to-be processes are, and then but then using process mining to understand, well, what's our as is? Where are we actually starting? What is the performance of our processes? What's performing well? What's not performing well? So that's a fantastic episode. Roger Tregear, we dive into in his episode talking about spreading process infection. And this episode we did at the beginning of COVID, or towards the beginning of 2020. That's when we recorded it. And I think at the time the media was going about talking about flattening the curve and I guess reducing the virus infection, or flattening the virus infection, however they worded it. And Roger was talking about how we need to spread process infection and really get that adoption throughout the organization, and different ways that we can go about doing that. And as I mentioned a bit earlier, I've received fantastic feedback from all different people from all different walks of life in different organizations that have been listening to the podcast. So David, for example, says, "Hey, Dan, you've done an awesome job here." This is an email I received from one of the listeners. "You've done an awesome job here. Well done. I listen to your podcast during some of my morning runs. Morning exercise routines are a great way to promote creative thinking. Your podcasts have been great for this." And David wanted a follow-up conversation to dive further into my thoughts around business process management and just talking with another industry colleague, I guess, if you could say that. And then I had another message come through. This is over LinkedIn. And this person mentioned or said, "What John talked about BPM is crystal clear. Thank you for constantly providing excellent videos." And I'm not sort of sharing all of these different responses or feedback. I'm not trying to sort of blow my own trumpet or anything. It is very encouraging receiving this feedback because I know that, the podcast is valuable and is helping people out. But ultimately, it's I want to show how much the podcast is spreading and it's gaining traction and it's delivering value, and that's a great thing to see. And having gotten to episode 100, I've only got more desire and excitement to continue the podcast series into the future. Maybe mix things up a little bit, but yeah, I think it's exciting pulling together this community of BPM professionals. So that leads me to this episode where I want to talk about my top 5 takeaways from Process Pioneers. Now, there are quite a lot of takeaways, but if I had to sum it up into 5, I wanted to limit it or reduce it to make it simple and clear of, my thoughts around the series and what really stood out to me. It may be different to what you've picked up, but we'll walk through that. So my first takeaway is go small or go home. And that may mean something to you. It may not. Go small or go home. Kind of plays on the whole go big or go home. Go small or go home. And the problem here is that BPM initiatives run out of steam, or they can run out of steam. And that can be due to a number of different factors or reasons or variables. The organization may have bit off more than they can chew. Maybe no one understands the why behind why they are doing the work that they're doing, or maybe no one takes responsibility. No one takes responsibility for the performance of this BPM adoption or the process improvements or how well it's going. And so I've got a couple of solutions for that. Now, I can't claim that they're my solutions, but they've come from the podcast series. And that's what I really wanted to make this episode is painting a few pictures of few problems or challenges with BPM adoption and how different guests on the show have overcome these challenges. So yeah, first one, go small, go home. I've listed those problems off. Solution, or a few different solutions. Number 1, start small. Matushi Chowdhury, and Matushi was a guest on the Process Pioneers series, says, target the low-hanging fruit. Start small projects, baby steps. Let's map the process this little bit. And once you reap the benefits from that, it makes a case for a bigger investment. It's pretty self-explanatory. So I'm not going to flesh out these different quotes that I'm going to be reading out any further because I feel like it sums it up very nicely, and we need to keep pressing on through the episode. Next solution is gain quicker wins. This is all relating to go small or go home. Gain quick or quicker wins. Shruti Sud says that's an approach that I've recently started adopting, which is to break things down into smaller achievable wins to help foster that mindset. Next solution is build credibility. And Alexander Essen says, as soon as you increase the credibility of your team and what you are doing with BPM, you will have a higher chance of spreading this approach throughout the organization. And the last solution that I wanted to mention relating to go small or go home is assign process owners. Linda Field said, is that what my organization represents? Is this what we actually do? Is this what our objectives are? What are the things that we actually do, and who owns it? And there's some fantastic questions there that we should all be asking ourselves in the organizations that we're working in. So that is go small or go home. Start small, gain quicker wins, build credibility, and assign process owners. The next key takeaway is executive buy-in. So the problem in this scenario is senior leadership don't see the value, whether that's many things are fighting for their attention. Maybe they don't see how the processes link to the overall strategy or the strategic objectives of the organization. Maybe they can't see the return on investment by focusing on process. So solutions here for executive buy-in is you've got to find that C-level sponsor. Nassim Ahmed says you do an initial business case with your findings that project what can be improved in the short and long term. Put forward those items to senior management, and that's how you get sponsorship. Next solution is build a case for BPM. Dennis Aksanov says you should start talking with everybody to understand their needs, and that will help you build the perfect business case. Next solution, process supporting strategy. Rajiv Mishra says, what's the vision again? Do you want to be competitive? Do you want to be efficient? And that's what keeps execs awake at night, right? And so he's asking these questions. Is you've got to understand the vision. You've got to understand what is it that the senior leaders or the C-level execs, what do they care about? And what's going to motivate them to invest into process? Is it going to be the solution to their burning problem or their biggest pain point? Next one is start with cost savings. Linda Field says, we were able to reduce the process from 40 minutes down to 18, which from a cost savings perspective worked out to be multi-million dollars a year savings. So that's key takeaway number 2, executive buy-in. Number 3 is everyone is important. The problem here is one person can't do everything or improve everything. You'll either end up wearing too many hats. You don't always know what's going on. You can't be in all places at once, and you'll have to work together. You'll have to work with others or work together with other people at some point anyways. So the solution here, the few solutions we've got for everyone is important, is find process champions. Ant Raj says, create process champions in each space. We have a champion for process improvement in the purchasing area. We have a champion in process improvement in the logistics area, and we work with those champions. Next solution is bring people along for the journey. Steve Marsh says, what we're trying to do is introduce a way in which we can bring people along a journey that it makes it much easier when we come to adopt and adapt the use of process management. Next solution is offer support. Jeff Forsyth says, our job is to help and support process practitioners to do their job better each day by removing the barriers to success and progress. And last solution is get quick wins to show value. Shruti Sood says, that's an approach I've recently started adopting, not being static and stuck to your frameworks, but breaking things down into smaller, achievable wins. And so that's point number 3, or key takeaway number 3, everyone is important. And the fourth point or fourth key takeaway is continuous improvement. So the problem here being documenting processes don't add value. Well, that's the myth. That's the theory. So continuous improvement, understanding your as-is processes is only step 1. And that, I'll just jump in here and say that, there is value in documenting your processes. I've heard many testimonies or case studies where before any improvement is actually done, just having that visibility delivers significant value in itself. But, if that's all if there isn't anything beyond that, it's no wonder why BPM initiatives can fall flat in their face. But understanding your as-is process is only step 1. Process documentation will just collect dust, again, if it doesn't have that greater purpose or why. There's no reason to improve. So solutions for for continuous improvement, is identify a few critical processes. For those who have, this is from Dan O'Neill, for those who have BPM already established, it's a great mechanism to remind themselves what the purpose is, what the strategy is, what the critical process is that they need to protect, and then you put all of your focus into those. Next solution is identify pain points and problems. Gary Talbot says, if your strategy is we want to be the best airline in the world, or we want to be the best department store in Australia, you have to absolutely make sure that what you're fixing enables that. Solution 3, celebrate small wins. Jeff Forsyth says they're going to be looking for that return on investment. They'll want to know what are the wins that we should be expecting and how long we should be waiting. Next solution is you got to communicate the value or the return on investment. Zareen says, if I'm going to invest in this, what am I going to get out of this? Many a times, many process folk fail to articulate that at a senior stakeholder level. Now, that is so important. So that is continuous improvement. And key takeaway number 5, start with why, which potentially, arguably, could be the most important one out of the lot. But the problem here is the purpose isn't understood. So no one understands why they need to change. The effort to change outweighs the perceived value, or attention might get redirected to other areas of the business with a clearer focus or understanding around the value there. So the solutions for this, for starting with why or not starting with why, is you got to define the why. Pretty self-explanatory. Define the why behind BPM. Peter Tortza says business processes help those who are involved first and foremost. But before you put in the process, you need to form a why. Next solution is ensure everyone is aligned. Shagufa Azimi says it's not just about getting the buy-in from the C-level executives. It's also about getting buy-in from the cross-functional team. Hence why you need a clear why, a clear purpose behind why you are adopting this process-centric approach. Solution, that was a bit of an ad lib on the end there. Solution number 3, communicate clearly. So Bilwa Gulgul says processes change and processes evolve. And I think if they don't, they should evolve. Then how are we communicating that change to the employees? And next solution, or last solution, for key takeaway number 5, start with why, is communicate often. Stephanie Naidu says the number 1 key success factor for a business process management activity, no matter if you're talking a full program or a single project, comes down to leadership. And that all comes under start with why. So let's recap the 5 takeaways. Go small or go home. Executive buy-in. Everyone is important. Continuous improvement, or start with why. And just a disclaimer around that, not all of that may work for you in your organization, and not all of that may be appropriate or relevant for where you're at in your organization. You may already have executive buy-in. You may not have a clear and defined why at the moment. You might have a why, you might have buy-in, but you're still trying to get everybody on board. Maybe you've got resistance from the process participants or the process performers. Maybe you've embarked on a journey that's far too big for the resources that you have available to you at the moment. And so you're struggling to prove value in it, which is potentially going to unlock more resources. So recapping or going back to previous points is start small, start on a smaller project. So, not all of that may work for you, but they're all make up the building blocks, I guess you could say, of your journey through to process maturity. And so one last thing I wanted to say before concluding this episode, that's the word I'm looking for, is so process pioneers, as I've said a few times in this episode already, this is episode 100. But we're always on the lookout for our next guests. And as I mentioned at the start, we've had people from all different backgrounds, all different journeys in the realm or the world of business process management. And I'm excited to continue to grow this series and this channel. I'm excited to mix things up. And I've got a few ideas floating around about what that could look like, whether that looks like not just being a two-way street, two-way conversation, but having multiple key thought leaders in the influential people in the space come into the same call and focus on a particular topic in BPM that we can sort of wrestle over or flesh out, as opposed to doing more of like a high level overview, tackling many different topics, which, in a 30-minute, 45-minute conversation, you can only touch on very little. But as I said, we are always on the lookout for our next guests on the podcast series. We're looking for decision makers, key influencers, process experts on all things process. So if you know somebody, please reach out to me, or maybe you are that you fit that description yourself. So please reach out to me. I would love to be connected and love to have a conversation and see how we can include you in this podcast series. But that's it for episode 100. Thanks for joining me. I hope you have gleaned value from this episode. If there's any points or topics that have stood out to you, please go back through the first 99 episodes, or we've tried to give them headings or titles that will give a somewhat of a clear idea around what that episode's going to be about. So feel free to go back through the episodes and glean from all of our guest speakers. If there's a point I've made that you'd like to specifically find out, all of the episodes relating to a particular topic, comment that below, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube or any of the podcast apps, and I'll be able to direct you to the right episode. So I think I'll wrap it up there. Thanks for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you in the next episode 101.